Everyone. My name is Michelle Holtzkener, and my colleague Aruba Ahmed and I, Aruba, wave, are pleased to be your moderators for the very first stream of Venus Fest virtual conference. Aruba? Aruba, you're muted.
First panel, what can I say? Thank you, Michelle. Before starting, we wish to acknowledge Venus Fest is located on the traditional Indigenous territory of the Huron-Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and most recently, the territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. During virtual Venus Fest, many of our artists and participants will be located on different unceded territories beyond this. Please take some time to learn about the history of the land on which you live, the communities who have cared for this land, and how you might participate in restoring justice. Today, we will be chatting about creating economic strategies for artists, negotiating fair payments, receiving funding, and building financial sustainability in a music career. Some housekeeping before we begin. We have live closed captioning available at the link in the video description, and there will be a Q&A at the end. So if there are any questions, please comment on YouTube, and we will be keeping track. Back to you, Michelle.
Thanks, Aruba. So quickly, Aruba and I are part of the Ontario Music Office at Ontario Creates. For those of you who are not familiar with Ontario Creates, we are an agency of the provincial government that facilitates economic development, investment, and collaboration in Ontario's creative industries, including music, but as well book and magazine publishing, film, television, and the interactive digital media sectors. We do a lot of things here at the Music Office, but we are likely best known for administering the Ontario Music Fund, now the Ontario Music Investment Fund. On a personal note, I've been in and around the music industry for my entire adult life, although never as an artist. Before joining Ontario Creates, I had many roles for many years at a wonderful record label that no longer exists. And I even worked at record stores before that. And on that note, panelists, can you please take a moment to introduce yourselves before we get started? Katie, why don't you kick it off?
Yeah, I'm Katie. I have a project called Austra, which I've been doing for over a decade now, making records and going on tour and stuff. And yeah, I'm from Toronto. I started my music career here and in the community here, and I'm excited to be here. So thank you for inviting me.
Hey, my name is Sandy. I'm from Toronto. I play bass and manage the money of Fucked Up from Toronto. We banded in 2001, and believe it or not, we're still going as much as one can go right now. And yeah, I'm happy to share everything that I've learned about money, basically, while being in this band for so damn long.
Hi, I'm Yvette. I'm from Mississaugas, South Toronto. I work at Blue Crane Agency as an agency associate. And on the side, I just hustle, help out any artists that I can in any way, and like mostly admin or PR. And yeah, that's it.
I think we may have just lost Tao.
Yeah,
Do you want to, on account of the fact that you work with her, would you like
and
to?
I work with Tao. So Tao is the owner of Blue Crane. There she is.
There she is.
Sorry, I was trying to hit the top left-hand corner for some reason, and I disappeared. Please go ahead.
Oh, we were, Yvette was doing your bio.
Thanks, Yvette. Oh, sorry about that. Hi, everyone. My name is Tao. I am owner at Blue Crane, and I work with Yvette, who's awesome. Basically, Blue Crane Agency. We're booking agents, so all that touring and show income, we're sort of, music business nerds on that front in terms of calculating show math, which can get really complicated and can be really intense sometimes. But our agency mandate prioritizes women, BIPOC folks, and queer and trans folks. I'm a gay woman of color, and I fall into all those three worlds, and those are the artists, minority artists that I feel most passionate about representing and elevating on the road. Previous to this, I was at Universal Music Canada and started with Carly Rae Jepsen's label and management in Vancouver, where I'm originally from. Also a board director at Polaris Music Prize and Canadian Live Music Association currently. Also an active member at the Toronto Music Advisory Council. Right now doing lots of advocacy and organizing for lost income for musicians, live music venues at the City of Toronto with Venus Fest's founder, Aaron Fogel. So super happy to be here. Thanks for having Blue Crane.
Thank you all for that. So we're going to get started with the concept of basic budgeting. Sandy and Katie, we'd like to start with you based on your artist experience. And the question is this: as a DIYer, how do you stay on top of budgeting? And almost as important, maybe more important, if there was a single piece of advice that you would be able to offer with respect to basic budgeting to the people that may be here today, what would it be? You can find who starts first.
I don't know how to. Okay, I'll start because I feel like you'll have more to say.
Okay.
Okay, well, the one piece of advice that I would say for budgeting, like for tour budgeting, is to always leave budget for something to go wrong. Because absolutely something will go wrong, that could potentially cost thousands of dollars, whether or not it's getting towed in Chicago because you parked in the wrong kind of parking spot and the ticket's $500, which has happened. or, you know, like breakdowns, and there's just always going to be something going wrong. So you should always leave at least a few $1,000s to the side when you're budgeting like a whole big tour, just to make room for that. Or at least, like, I don't know, make sure that you have a credit card that has some room on it or something that can kind of save you when you're traveling. And aside from that, I think budgeting DIY styles, I guess it's important to get like really good at spreadsheets, which I'm sure everybody can relate to in this sense and in this matter. And then, you know, as an artist, we've talked a little bit about this with Sandy, but like starting out, I think it's really important to just like call upon your community and like community favors, and sort of like really try and pull as many favors as you can. And within like a touring circuit, there are people who just like want to take care of bands and just like want to help bands and support bands. So I feel like in every city, if you look for it, if you wanted to, you could probably find somewhere safe and comfortable to stay if you just like reach out into the network of touring artists, really.
Yep. I agree with all of that. And yeah, I guess I'll just start with my first tip, which Katie already mentioned, is spreadsheets. Excel should be your friend. And I know it scares a lot of people, but I'm hearing a word echo. Sorry, is that me? But super important to just jot everything down, and because it'll make your life easier just by using that software. It'll kind of take away a lot of the anxiety. But really, when you're starting out, yeah, like Katie said, like tap into those favors, like look for forests to sleep before you start to consider hotels. Really try and keep it cheap, you know, look for the deals, especially early on in your career. And then once you start making money, what we would do is set aside funds from each tour to pop it in the bank account and let our nest egg grow. And then we'll have money to pay for visas or flights for the next tour. So, you know, in earlier tours, instead of splitting it up according to how many band members there were, we would do an extra band member, which is the bank, and keep that padded. But yeah, like we didn't really start doing hotels until like we were a band for 7 or 8 years. I'm sure it's a bit different now, and maybe because we're a punk band, you know, and we were young back then, we were okay kind of roughing it. But I think it was really important to sort of allow us to build a nest egg so that it takes away some of the anxiety. But yeah, number one, yeah, learn Excel, keep all receipts in an envelope, don't crunch them up. Count cash 2 to 3 times, like minimum twice. And then if the second time is off, then 3 times. Write everything down, because throughout the tour, you know, people are, oh, can I borrow $10? Can I borrow $20? That or someone, you know, paid for something. Just write everything down, because you know that in 2 days, in 2 weeks, you're not going to remember a thing. And yeah, I just want to say, my mom used to say, $1 here, $1 there is $2. So you know what? Just be budget minded always, and just stay within your means, like spend within your means.
I have to add one important thing, and that is to always deposit your cash. If you're getting cash, try not to have more than like a few $100s on you at any time, because it will get stolen.
Oh boy, no! I've had many a cash bundle under my pillow at night on tour. Like there's been some times on tour where I would literally have like 5,000 euros on me. But luckily I have a bag on me, a purse, so it's just wild that I'd be like walking across town with like, you know, $20,000 US.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I wanted to jump in from like a industry agency perspective too. Always on the topic of like writing things down, I would also recommend writing down your tour settlement numbers in terms of how many tickets you sold at the end of the night. As you develop your career, agents, if you ever want to get signed to an agency, if that is of interest to you, or if you hate booking your own shows and need help from an agency doing that, really, really important to keep your your hard ticket numbers, your ticket sale numbers. As you tour in the van from market to market, it's really good to keep those, because that is going to be able to heighten your chances, I guess, of getting signed to an agency. Agents always want to know your ticket sales numbers, to sort of get a sense of where your fan base is. You know, if you're selling 20 tickets in Chicago, if you're selling 200 tickets in Toronto, if you're selling 500 tickets in Vancouver, it's going to relate as your agents deal with your management as well, in terms of linking up your social numbers, Spotify, Apple, where people are listening to you, in terms of also integrating new ticketing marketing platforms that Spotify and Apple have. So that's another thing I would also write down and make sure you have records of.
So I disappeared and now I'm back, and now I don't know what I missed, which is wonderful. So my next note here was, hey, Tao and Yvette, you guys should jump in and add things, but I'm going to assume that already happened.
Yeah, I'll add on to what Tao said. Before I was at Blue Crane Agency, I used to do shows. So I used to have a company called Uncdtnl where we did shows. And one thing that I used to work for Manifesto, and I did a show for CMW. And one thing that they told me was, even though I'm not working the door anymore, to always write down all the numbers, like all the people that come in, because you want to calculate that at the end, and that adds to your budget, and it also adds to your value as an artist as well. And then also what Katie said, contingency. So having emergency money, especially even as a promoter, like there's so many little expenses. Like I've had to run to Lonnie McQuaid like last minute before shows because we need a mic piece, or you needed something you didn't know that you needed to have. And then lastly, I want to say, add yourself in the budget, because even as an artist, if you're doing like, I know a lot of artists are DIY, so they might be doing their own graphic design or their own running or something like that, something that you would pay somebody else. And I think it's important to think of yourself as an employee to yourself. So if you have the means, pay yourself in that budget. So I used to have to add myself and be like, Yvette, publicist, and my business partner used to be like, I'd be like, well, I gotta get paid, because you forget. So definitely pay yourself in the budget if you can, and if you have the means, and if you're getting a grant, because then they can pay you, and now you got money.
Well, we can talk about grants later. But that actually, something that Yvette said, I want to turn back to Katie and Sandy for a second. And do you remember the point in your career where you actually noticed a shift, where you weren't as worried as you had been at the beginning? Did you notice a point in time where your finances changed? Or maybe you are still working through it. But is there a point, like, do you remember that moment where you're like, I don't have to worry about this anymore?
And how did you manage that, if there was a point?
I mean, I don't think there's ever one point where you're like, I don't have to worry about money anymore. There's always like, there's always peaks and valleys. There's slow years. Like the thing about being a musician is that, you never really know year to year what sort of year you're going to have. You're really kind of taking a lot of gambles. You're like, okay, I'm spending 3 years to make this record. I'm going to put out a record. And then it's like, what happens to the record? Like, are people going to like it? Are they going to want to come and see you play for a few years? Or are they not going to want to come and see you play for a few years? So there's really there's a lot of uncertainty for sure in being a musician. And that can be really stressful and really difficult. But I think for me, the way I've kind of figured it out is that you always kind of similarly to being on an individual tour, you just always need to kind of have like a safety net for yourself. So you kind of always need to think about the 6 months that you're not going to have any income coming in, and just make sure that if you're fortunate enough to be able to put enough money aside, that you can kind of cover that. And I mean, the way being a musician usually works, at least in my case, I tend to get paid from my label every 6 months. And you never really know how much you're going to get. So the money comes in chunks, very sporadically. And yeah, it's just really important I feel like it's sometimes artists will get a big check because they'll get a big advance from a record label or something like that. And they'll just blow it on a fancy car and just spend it on lots of fun stuff. And then they won't get paid again for 3 years. So it's like you really need to, like if you make a bunch of money, just think that it has to last you for the long term and try and stretch it out as long as you can.
Yeah. With Fucked Up, the point when we noticed a shift, I guess, I mean, the first label we signed to, I don't think there was an advance. The first US label for first record in 2006, can't remember if there was an advance actually. If there was, it probably paid for the recording. But the change really happened when we signed with a bigger US label, Matador Records. So this was back in 2007 or 8. And so we were getting a sizable advance. So that's when we had to really think, okay, we got to get a business bank account, or we got to start thinking about taxes. That's when we caved and got a business number. And then open the business account, open a business credit card. Like, I know, before then we were like, screw that noise, we're just going to keep it, DIY and all that. But it really helps to just have a place where all the band money lives. Because for years, I was paying for our flights and then have to remember to pay myself back, right? And there are literally probably over 100 transactions in my personal accounts that I had to always go back and make sure, did I get paid back for that, So, I'd say so around 7 years of being in the band was when we actually became a partnership, became official. Really that's it. And filing taxes. I know it's a scary word, taxes, but, generally bands make so little that there isn't too many taxes to pay usually. But yeah, that's and how do we manage that? You know what? We just there are 5 people in the band. Later we got a 6th. There are those are a lot of hands and a lot of heads. Get to work. Everyone has something that they're good at, and it somehow just happened in our band. That certain people just took up certain tasks, and I think my being first generation Canadian, the daughter of an immigrant, I really learned the value of the dollar. So like I had that really like drilled into me as a child, and even as an adult. Like my mom talks to me about money all the time and like fiscal responsibility and stuff. So yeah, just, there's a lot you can do on your own. There's a lot you can learn and cover on your own. And if you need help, there are a lot of resources there to help you.
I think that's an excellent point, Sandy. And I think that's a great jumping board to sort of talk about, and I want to open the floor to everyone. What does financial sustainability in music look like to you guys as artists, as booking agents? Like, what does that mean?
Katie, you want to just go?
Tower me that.
I guess it's a really, really tough question, and it's a really timely question, just because nothing seems financially stable right now, or financially sustainable in the time of COVID. Our whole touring industry is completely imploded from the inside out. I was just talking to my good friend over at Live Nation, who, Live Nation Canada has had to cut down their staff by 60%, and no one knows the future of I mean, it's looking like right now people won't be able to tour for next summer, 2021. And, there's all these articles and critics of consumer trends of, if people actually take, if there's a vaccine, if people do feel comfortable taking the vaccine, but also believing in the vaccine, that they would pay for a concert ticket again by the time, say, announcement period starts, which, obviously Coachella is always typically the first to announce on January 1st, 2nd, or 3rd of the year. And then you get into the major sort of summer festival announcements from March to May. And by March to May of next year, are people going to be wanting to pay for concert tickets? Who knows? So it's a really tough question. It feels like nothing is sustainable as of today to me. It doesn't feel like anything is stable. But I think the important thing is right now, I guess one trend I've noticed as a booking agent is, budgets have gone completely down to COVID, for booking our headline acts. Artist fees have probably gone down to 20% what they were before. And, you know, that's not to just say rah, rah, rah and blame promoters right now, because they might be parking their money, their 2020 budgets from 2021 budgets. Who knows what they're doing with their money, but it's also completely unstable for our promoters right now too, where they don't even know that if their festivals are going to survive till next year. If they don't get certain grants in place, which is a governmental issue, it's a, you know, federal money, provincial money, who has the money to help these organizations stay put to hire artists. So I don't really have an answer. I guess my like agent hat is kind of like, just argue for as much money as you can for your shows right now. It's slim pickings. Everyone's desperate right now. I think that if you're able to still do gigs at 20%, the artist fees that you would typically get, some of my artists are just saying confirm it, you know, they need their pennies, which, you know, I can't argue why they wouldn't do that. So it's a desperate environment, but confirm what you can and just try to negotiate as hard as you can to, as much as you can right now for your shows.
Yeah, it's definitely an uncertain time, and there's a lot of people in the music industry. Sandy and Katie, as artists, Katie, you mentioned earlier about like the inevitable peaks and valleys of being an artist. So how do you sort of see that in terms of financial sustainability? And, like, was it like, did you have the plan for those inevitable valleys that come, and how did you foresee that?
Well, I mean, I don't think anybody foresaw this happening, like this valley. This is definitely unknown territory for everybody. But yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting in the music industry. What I've kind of noticed is that it seems like most people that work in the music industry kind of have like salary jobs and like work at companies and, you know, kind of have this expected income, except for the musicians. Like musicians don't really have like any guaranteed income or any kind of like security, really, essentially, in what they're doing. And so that's why it's so important as a musician to be aware of budgeting and your finances, because it's really hard to kind of, you know, plan for the rainy day and plan for the peaks and the valleys. And, you know, you'll have lots of people working for you, like managers and accountants and whoever else. But ultimately, it's so important to have autonomy over your own finances and just to be aware of what's happening and just expect that things will probably get hard in the future and plan for that, really.
Yeah, as Katie said, there really is a lot of risk in doing what we're doing. And I mean, I tend to be a bit risk averse. You know, I feel like if it wasn't for the band, you know, 4 others at the time behind me saying, hey, this is the year, like, let's quit our jobs, let's do this. You know, in 2008 was when I quit my desk job, which I was, you know, I mean, it was an okay job, it paid well, but, you know, to leave, it was really scary. And from that point on, I just made it a point to just live within my means. You know, like, it's kind of a lifestyle, actually, to really watch what you spend and just to squirrel everything away. And with the band, we've also done that. We didn't pay ourselves for a long time. For the first several years, every penny that the band made stayed in the band. We didn't pay ourselves out. We were doing $5 per diems for almost a decade. I remember when we went up to $20 per diems, like, we were feeling like, hey, we're like high rollers here, you know? Yeah, so prepare. I mean, it is volatile, and luckily, you know, we had been saving as a band over the years. We always put a little bit away. Once touring became more regular and we were a serious band, like doing like 150 shows a year type thing. So, you know, this with COVID, I mean, I guess knock on wood, this was a hiatus year for us anyway. Our last album came out in 2018, so the album cycle was already completed by end of last year, and we actually recorded an album this March. So we're just kind of sitting tight, and I have to say I'm really, really grateful that we had been saving all this time. Usually we'll go on a tour, make sure all our expenses are paid from the tour, and then we'll divide up what's remaining. But things like merch sales, so like we merch table in the US sell merch for us. All those checks, they just go in the bank. Like my band doesn't even see them. And then a year later, I'll be like, oh, hey guys, we have this nest egg build up. What are we going to do with it? Do you want to pay some out, keep some banked? So yeah, really just, I think it helps if you can afford it. And I realize I'm speaking from a position of privilege, being a band that has made some money to afford a modest living for 6 people, is really just to just keep scrolling away. And if you can, save as much money as you can by watching what you spend, do it. If you can't afford a publicist, don't hire one. Do it yourself. There's a lot that you can do yourself, especially now, so many oftentimes free digital tools at your disposal. As for moving forward with COVID, it's a tough one. I know we'll probably get into that a bit later.
Yeah.
Unmute.
I don't know if she was looking at me or Michelle. Okay, keep going.
Well, I was actually gonna take that and direct my next question to both Tao and Yvette again. Something that Sandy and it's sort of been an underlying theme also. Okay, you get paid for a show. Just fee negotiations in general. So before you can budget with the money that you're earning, you need to get paid. But if you're starting out, how do you know the value of your own work? How do you know how to negotiate what your fee should be? So we've had a lot, we've got a lot of this from sort of the artist perspective. So I want to flip this over to the agents. So how do you value your artist's work, and how do you value it appropriately? What do you know? What tips do you have for people that may be in the audience?
I can just start by saying, as I alluded to before, that unfortunately, everything industry-wise is on the touring front, on the show and touring front, is based on ticket sales. Oh, can folks hear me? Yeah, I think so. So keep track. If you're selling, if you do a show at the Drake Underground, it's 200 capacity. If you're selling, say, 50 tickets on a Friday night or say on a Wednesday night in winter, keep track of what day of the week you played, because selling a Wednesday is harder than selling a Saturday usually. Take into those market factors when you speak to agents and when you speak really to your industry and to your team around you, because that helps determine your value. If you're selling, what ticket prices you're selling your tickets for. If you're doing like a $10 ticket basement DIY show, but you're selling 500 of those, and you have a lineup around the block in this illegal DIY space, that sometimes looks to an agent or to industry like more goodwill than selling, say, like 30 or say 20 tickets at, say, $25 at a mainstream club show where you're paying a lot of expenses to the production manager and to the tech manager to be there that night, to, say, sound and lights person. Keep track of what types of shows you're playing and describe that to your team and to your agent if you're trying to get signed in terms of determining your value. Where you're advertising your show also has to factors into it. If it's, say, an underground show where you're doing like a cool traditional route, like doing flyers or posters as opposed to just Instagram marketing, that can also determine your audience and where people are showing interest in buying advance tickets or tickets at the door. Yvette, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
I'll I'll probably just say like the performance, because I know me and Tao liked going to concerts when we were able to. We were always just like, how was that show? Like, was there a live band? Was the singer like jumping on the stage? Like, did we like how she performed? And just like that, we're just like, okay, well, we know what this artist is not, I don't want to say worth, because all artists are worth $1 million, but what kind of show they're going to put on. Because the better the show, the better, you know, prices they can go up and more people are going to want to see you. If you opened for like an artist and you did better than the artist you opened up for, yeah, your next show is going to be so much more better. If you had like a little slot in a festival, that's something you should account for. So like Tao said, every single thing you've done, it should be accounted for. And your fans, like, where are your fans? Can your fans afford your tickets or can they not afford their tickets? Are they young rockers or are they older, more mature crowd who rather sit down at your show and be calm? So it's like figuring out the show that you're going to put on and have proof of it. Because like one of the things we ask for is like, oh, what's your past performances? Or do you have footage of your past performances? And that's the best way that we can pitch for you as agents to promoters or festivals. And so they see that you did like a rocking show at like the Drake Underground. Yeah, they're going to want to book you for a bigger festival. And now that you can put your creativity on that stage. So it's literally just knowing your own worth in order to get paid in that with money. So definitely putting on like an amazing show and making me want to be on stage too.
I think one person or like an agent, I don't know, I guess like traditional cheesy agent speak is like when you have agents scouting for your band or like coming to your show, usually, I don't know, it's a big boys club. They're usually at the bar at the back of the venue and they're not talking to anyone and they're just like side-eyeing people but I think that's their tactic is they like to hang out at the back of the venue and check out the whole audience and who's actually paying attention to what you're saying in between your songs. They're paying attention to the storytelling that in the breaks and how the audience is receiving you. So there's this cheesy quote of just like if the fans or the audience at the back of the venue are paying attention to you above the bar noise, above the venue noise, then you know that you're connecting with your fans in some way. And I'm sure that Katie and Sandy can speak to that. You know, it's an energy in the room that often your value can't be translated, that can't be spoken of, but you feel it in the room. So
yeah.
That's a really great point, Tao and Yvette. And I think like one of the benefits of doing this discussion is we get to see like both perspectives across the spectrum. So Katie and Sandy, I wanted to ask you, when is the right time to find partners and representation? What was right for you? What worked for you? What advice do you have?
Well, actually, kind of playing into what Tao and Yvette were saying, I never really thought about that. But yeah, like agents obviously care about like how many tickets you sell. And, you know, when you're a local band in Toronto, it's easy just to like play a show once a month and just kind of play the same show once a month. But I think that when you're just starting out, it's really important to kind of have these like special moments where you can kind of like mobilize everybody that you know in the city to come out. So it's like whether or not you're releasing like a DIY EP that you made at home yourself and you mixed and you like made the artwork yourself. But it's like you have like a proper EP release and suddenly you're inviting like everyone you know in the city, everyone in the community, all the musicians. And it's like you sort of create this hype essentially around something that you've made. So that's definitely something to think about. Like you can't really expect to sell a lot of tickets if you're playing regularly as you do as a local band. So you kind of have to like, just sort of make these special moments and these special events, and then those events are kind of the ones that are going to excite like the agents, the people in the industry, you know. And also even just I think seeing the initiative to put something like that together, I think would have like a pretty good impact as well in terms of people wanting to work with you. But really, yeah, I think it's really hard to know and say when it's a good time to start working with an agent or start working with a manager or a label. And I think it's going to be different for everybody, absolutely. But I mean, really with an agent, you know, you kind of have to be selling, you kind of have to be able to sell tickets to start working with an agent. You know, like it doesn't, you know, maybe they'll get you some like support shows or something, or if you have already like a label behind you or something, but like you really kind of have to build that like core momentum on your own. And that takes a lot of work and a lot of community building. And I think that once you have that, then that kind of will like attract the agents in the industry to you, really.
Yeah. In Fucked Up's experience, because we were a punk band, we were tapped into the punk scene, which, you know, stretched all across the world. We were getting our 7-inches. Probably Mike or someone in my band was sending 7-inches, or maybe Gord, who does Strange Records, who put out our first few 7-inches. Someone was sending out our 7-inches to Maximum Rock and Roll. They were getting reviewed. I'm sure promoters across the country and across Europe were seeing the reviews, and then through the reviews, then your name would keep coming up every few months. Oh, Fucked Up, who's this band? And then we started getting offers. You know, being in the band, I have no idea what our value is. I mean, I know I see the guarantees now. Well, you know, before now, but I wouldn't be able to tell you what we're worth. I feel like what we're worth is what people are willing to pay, and what people are willing to pay is dependent on what we offer, which is an amazing show, right? Sometimes it's sloppy. Most of the time, like Fucked Up sound is kind of sloppy, but at the show you can't even tell because you're so gripped by all the sweat and all the movement. You know, there's 6 bodies on stage, like it's chaotic, right? And that's an experience that people then want to pay for. And definitely having an agent helps hugely in this regard. We got our first agent. It was 2008. I just opened up my documents here from our booking agent folder. 2008. With Ground Control, again, that was the year we quit our jobs. That was the year we signed with Matador, and we were, you know, giving it a go. And I think it really helps to have someone, you know, in your corner here. You know, I mean, I'm all for DIY, but you can't do everything well, right? You still need to focus on the other things as you should as an artist. So, yeah, having someone else speak on our behalf, hugely important. I can't even imagine us doing it now. And yeah, really, yeah, I can't remember how that came together, but ultimately word got around that, you know, we were an exciting live band, and then, you know, people want to meet you or want to be a part of it. So like Katie said, focus on your show, like focus on your performance. That's what's ultimately going to set your value. Don't worry about marketing plans and like, you know, like just focus on the music. Don't try to work on things all around it, because if what you're doing is pure and genuine and unbridled and, you know, good, then it will grow legs. And that's usually what I tell people. Just focus on what you do best, and then the people who can help, they'll come to you. They'll find you, or you'll find them. But yeah, that's really my main point.
So speaking of when to get involved and them finding you, for Yvette and Tao, at what point do you become involved? So do you have artists seeking you out for representation, or do you go out and scout? How does this play in for artists finding partners in you?
Yeah, I would say both happens. So right now, I would say that our industry has like accelerated at such an incredibly fast pace that often agents traditionally, you could be an artist that say has like 4 million streams on Spotify. If the agent hasn't seen the live show, or I would say even like pre-Spotify, because now I would say that agents do sign acts if it's a super buzzy act that has racked a same number of streams just online. They'll sometimes sign without seeing the live show. That's crazy to me. I always prefer to and see an act live before signing them if I can help it. But the industry is just moving so fast that sometimes, and usually this is more like indicative of like the major agencies, really heavyweight agents. Sometimes they can afford to sort of sign someone and work for someone because for like a development act or a buzzy act or an act that they haven't met or seen before, just because they have the bandwidth to do so. Indie agents like Blue Crane Agency, you know, we like to keep it sometimes like more sort of traditional that way. Like we like to sort of, you know, meet at least the musician. We have a pretty niche mandate that, you know, that is pretty lefty and social justice based. And, you know, we like relationships and meeting the artist and making sure there's like a good vibe before we sign them. But in terms of A&R that way, it's anything goes. Like artists can reach out to us, send us their links, invite us to shows. That's often how a connection is made. Often it's just, you know, through word of mouth or through promoters, managers that I work with, if they sign a new act. And we have a really good working relationship with management already. Sometimes they'll be like, sign a new act. Do you want it? Or sign a new act. Come see them. You're going to love them. Let's see if there's a vibe. Blogs, like, I don't know. I live on sort of like Pitchfork, Stereo Gum, Fader, all the music blogs that I read on a daily basis just on my browser window every day when I open up my homepage. So I'm constantly reading about who's making music, who's doing cool things. And then, yeah, me and Yvette go to a ton of shows. If it's not COVID, we're seeing 2, 3, 4 shows a week. But I would say it comes down to word of mouth. People who are music nerds talk about music all the time, for better or for worse. So whether it's with our friends telling us who they like or who they enjoy, and with industry as well. So.
Yeah. Everything Tao said. So like Sandy was saying, focus on the music because it's when we like the music. So like if she likes an artist, she'll send me or I'll send her. Like if we like the music, then it's just like, okay, well, we want to work with you, you know, or like word of mouth. We heard that you're a really cool person, just a cool person. Even if the music is not as cool as you, it's still easier to work with you. So I feel like definitely if I love the music and I'm obsessed, I want to work with you.
Yeah, and
So
not
definitely
just
the
like
music.
the recorded music, like in studio. The show is really important because, I mean, as Tao was speaking, I remember about 10 years ago, I went to go see this buzz band from New York, and you know, everyone's freaking out. I won't name who it is, but everyone's freaking out about these recordings. And then I saw them at the Horseshoe, and it was not good because the person was just working in his bedroom making the music. It blew up, and then he patched a band together afterwards, and it just fell flat. It just and you know, after that tour, I don't think they toured again. So really, you want to be like cohesive with your band.
Especially if they can do covers. I love covers. I love anybody who can do covers. If you can do a show and you like kill the cover, I'm like, I want to see you next time because I don't know what song you're gonna do next time. So definitely, like, if you do covers, we're gonna want you to perform them.
And that's kind of interesting as well, because I feel like the way that the music industry works, like people get super excited about a new band, and then it's really hard to maintain a career once you're on like your 3rd, 4th, 5th record, you know, kind of thing. But like when you're like a new band and you're putting out your 1st record or your 2nd record or something like that, you want to make sure you're in it, like you're ready for that. Like you want to make sure your band is the best it's ever been, your show is the best it's ever been. You know, you want to just like put out your 1st record like it's the most important thing in the world, because the thing is that record, or like that whole, you know, world surrounding that record is so important. And if you're getting attention, you might not get it again. You know, it comes and it goes. And so you just really want to make sure you're prepared for when the agents and the labels start knocking on your door. You want to have a really strong foundation that will sort of carry you through for the long term.
Absolutely. Speaking of building a good foundation, I wanted to change gears just a little bit.
Oh. Sorry, can I just add one more thing to Katie's comment? Okay, I think that what everyone is bringing up here is so important. Timing is everything. Timing is everything in terms of when you sign your contracts and build your team. So like in the show space, what Katie was saying of like, you need to be ready. And to also Michelle's last question is just, you know, we'll have bands that have incredible music, but they don't have a show yet. So they have their, millions of streams on Spotify, but they don't have the bass player that they want. They don't have the keyboardist that they want. They don't have the DJ that they feel comfortable touring on the road. So when an agency approaches you, ideally you want to have your rider ready, your tech rider, your hospitality rider. You want to have that already. Non-COVID times, do you have a touring band? Do you have access to that to house everyone, to bring everyone on the road? Because I can want to work with an artist and think the music's great, and I've listened to the next EP that's coming out 6 months down the road. I can start routing a tour for you, say in 2 months, getting holds and avails in all your venues. And the promoters will want you, but if you don't have your set ready, it's like it does not look good for your fans. You're going out on the road too early. And it doesn't look good to your agent, because what's going to happen is that they're going to get feedback from the promoters at the end of every night and have a lackluster opinion of you weren't ready for the stage. So I think that's why it's so important to tour as much as you can in DIY venues, small local venues, build up an audience. If you can sell 100, 150 tickets, 200 tickets, that's incredible already to get your feet wet in your local market. But to be able to tour regionally and internationally, you need to be able to have your ducks in a row with your riders and have your team members with you on board, ready to go. And then the last point is just, like buzzy bands. I'm not going to name one, but Toronto, where I'm based, it's such a hot market right now and has been for the last decade. But I would say, like, I've seen bands, there was one last year that just had such a buzz to them. Music was incredible, got signed by, I think, James Blake's management in the UK, was a Toronto boy. And literally the first show you go to is at the Great Hall. It's, sold out. It's like it was Longboat Hall, 400 capacity. And you can tell, or I'm actually particularly careful as an agent, where you go to shows and it's all industry in the room and it's no fans. And to me, like, that is a red flag of like, and the setup that this musician put together was just a band that they had gotten together the month of. So I think that's sometimes where you can see risky bands is like when you go into a room and it's only industry, it's like only your agent friends or only your label friends. And like that means that there's such goodwill on the industry side, but on the show side, you need to have time to build up your fans, because that band, I don't know where they're going to be in 2021. So I think that's like, just be careful of that, because your fans are the most important thing to you. And what's gonna be keeping your career alive. It's your fans. It's not your team members. Your team members will change and relationships can be hard. And your fans is the one that you need to build from day one and will stay with you till the day you die.
Yeah, that's like fantastic advice, Tao. I'm just keeping track of the time, and there is one like final thing that we really wanted to touch on before we head to Q&A, and that is about accessing funding. We've talked a lot about like financial sustainability, when's the right time to work with representation, and working. Michelle and I work for an agency that provides like economic development grants. And we get a lot of inquiries about from artists and companies from all different stages of their career. And so I want to ask you guys, like, is there a right time to start applying for grants? Where do you start, and where have you had the most success?
Well, I have a career because of the granting system in Canada. I wouldn't have one without that. I made my first record. I made it through an Ontario Arts Council grant. They gave me $10,000 and I was able to make a record. And then I got a grant from Factor to go to South by Southwest. They paid for our visas. They paid for our travel. And I went to South by Southwest with my record that I had made for $10,000. And I signed a record deal in Texas. So like, absolutely, I was very dependent on the granting system. Like, absolutely. And I wouldn't have a career without it. Absolutely.
In Fucked Up's history, I guess because we were so tapped into the punk scene, we had an audience. Like really, we just focused on building our audience first, and we weren't preoccupied about how much money could we make during those first few years. Like those shows where they were like, pay what you can, $5 at the door. You want to lower the barrier of entry so that more people can come to your shows. Because the more people that come to your shows means the next time you play their town, they'll tell their friends, and then more people will come. So just by doing that, going on a few weekend tours consistently, people tell their others, and then they'll come, and then slowly your fee will go up as expenses go up. But I would say don't be worried about money so much early on. Just build your career. And as for like when a good time is to get a grant, like I don't think we really applied for many grants until maybe our fifth or sixth year. But then things did change when we won the Polaris Prize in 2009. Then all of a sudden, granting bodies cared about this little band called Fucked Up, right? Because we were getting reviewed and appearing in, the New York Times and like Enemy and stuff. So from that point, then we got access to a couple of album grants. I think there's like a lifetime limit of 2. And we've also had help with some touring grants, which takes, it covers like a percentage of your expenses up to a certain point, which, we got 6 people in the band. The expenses are huge, like 6 plane tickets, all like it's unbelievable. Basically for every $1 of guarantee or income we have, like 50 cents of it is gone, like minimum. So as for when it's the right time, it really depends, for each band, but really, I guess I don't know when it's the right time. I guess once you've maybe got a label, you have a record under your belt or not. I mean, it really depends. Like, Katie got a grant for her first album. Like it really depends. It's different for everyone.
Yvette, you mentioned that you were in a couple of grants. Do you have any tips on where to start?
I think you should just apply. You never know until you apply. Like Katie said, like it helped her create the record and travel. So even as promoters, we meant to also apply to go to South by, but then COVID happened. But if it didn't, we would have applied as showcase ready to put on a showcase. And honestly, I wouldn't have been able to do any of the showcases I did or get the experience I did without Factor. You know what I mean? So Factor is, people say it's hard, but it's not really hard. As long as you know how to tell your passion of why you make music or why you want to help people make music, I feel as though any time is the right time because they're people too. So tell your story, write it out. If you need a grant writer, get a grant writer, edit it, make sure everything's spelled right, and get the money. So I feel like any time is the best time to try to get money because you never know. You never know if they're going to say yes, no, if they're going to be like, we love you, want to give you so much more money than you asked for. Which happens.
And I would just want to add, if you get denied, don't take that to mean that you should just end it, that you suck, that it's not worth it. Just try again. But in the meantime, still just continue to build your audience and continue to focus on that. Because I really do believe that persistence pays off.
Yeah. And you'll show them that like this is needed. So like a lot of like R&B or hip hop, they don't want to apply. And it'll show that that genre is needed just as much as pop, just as much as country. So apply because they'll know that there's a need and demand for it.
Yeah, and kind of what Tao was saying before about keeping track of your numbers when you're playing shows, ticket sales. Most grants just kind of care about numbers. Like there's some air of like, we love the music, we believe in this, but ultimately they want to see that numbers are growing to some extent. So if you apply and your numbers aren't quite there yet, but then next time they're a little bit bigger, like they just want to see a trajectory of growth. And that is often just, they'll ask for numbers and they'll be like, how many followers do you have? How many records have you sold? What are your ticket sales? So if you can like get at them with numbers, then that's super, super helpful.
Yeah, and if you haven't already, set your band up with a Factor artist profile, and it's in the portal where you would enter all of your numbers from sales to, you know, likes and all that stuff.
Okay, so we are going to be starting the Q&A very shortly. And if I can also add to the granted conversation, because this is what Aruba and I do. Absolutely don't be discouraged if you don't get the funding on your first try. Everything Yvette said is bang on. And if the granting agency provides feedback, most of them do, if I'm not mistaken, listen to what they have to say, because it's in their best interest to give you money, because if you succeed, they succeed and they meet. And so I can speak from personal experience that's it's success for all, frankly, and that makes everyone feel good. Does anyone have any final thoughts, or we do have questions. Aruba, why don't we take turns reading the questions? Is that
Sure.
Go for it.
Yeah, totally. This question is from Vanessa. She asks, do you build P&Is for your tours ahead of time? If not, how do you plan out your expenses versus profit?
What are P&Is? Sorry.
P&Ls, profit and loss statements.
Okay.
P&L, sorry.
I didn't know what P&Ls were either. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, you know what? This might seem crazy because this is a whole panel about budgets, but we rarely make budgets. The only times I've really made a budget was if we're trying to get around paying tax in the UK. You know, you have to set a budget of like all your expenses, all your projected income. Oh, okay, you're not making that much. All right, no tax. But really, I think we just live with the philosophy of just be very cost effective in everything you do. Look for the cheapest flights. You know, I know it seems kind of like boring and lame or just, you know, just kind of not fun. But yeah, in our experience, we haven't really done budgets. But no, we don't really do that ahead of time, but definitely do it after the tour is done. You know, I've got these Excel sheets, these beautiful Excel sheets that I've just improved over the years, and everything's on there, and then you can see the profit or loss there. But yeah,
I have to say I'm the complete opposite of you. I absolutely rely on budgets before the tour. And also, I feel like we have different standards whereby I like to maintain a certain standard of the quality of life on tour. Yeah. Like for me, there's like an importance in like the quality of like where I'm staying now. In the beginning, I didn't care so much, but now like, you know, 10 years down the road or whatever, I'm kind of like, I kind of want to sleep somewhere that's not like the most disgusting. And so I kind of do it where the tour, I try and make sure that the tour is going to break even, and then at least break even, and then overages, merch, and grants are all kind of bonuses on top of that. That's generally how I've done it for the long term. And you know, we will like spend a little bit of extra money to stay in like a slightly nicer hotel, because that's just like a priority for us. But that's different for everybody. You know, like everybody has different needs for sure.
Well, Katie, you can keep your mic not on mute, because the next question is for you. It's from Savannah Jones-Martin. Mm-hmm. You mentioned applying for your first 10K grant for your initial record. What kind of grant did you manage to secure? And how did you do this when you have very little work to show?
I applied so it was an Ontario Arts Council grant, and I actually don't remember exactly what it was called because it was such a long time ago, but it was like some sort of creation grant. And the thing about the Arts Council and the Toronto Arts Council, the Ontario Arts Council versus like Factor and OMF is that the Ontario Arts Council and Toronto Arts Council are more concerned in what you're making than the numbers. So I think if you can make a compelling case to the Toronto Arts Council, if they feel what you're doing is interesting, or if you've got like some sort of something unique to offer or whatever, then I think it's possible to get funding. So that's kind of what we were talking about, of which grants should you apply for first. It's important to know like which ones care about the numbers and which ones care about, you know, like wanting to help people in the beginning of their careers, essentially.
I'm just going to add something in there very quickly, Aruba, just for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Just to distinguish the different kinds of grants. So Arts Council's grants, especially for new artists, they they fund art for art's sake. They look their focus is on the art. So for Factor and OMF and Star Maker, it's absolutely not that we don't care. We do care very much. But what we're at it from a different perspective. We're looking at the business of music. So it's just there's your, dare you say, starter grants, and then there's the building grants. So it's like a nice tiered system, sort of. And Aruba, go ahead.
Absolutely. Another question for everyone. What do you consider to be industry standard rates for managers, agencies, grant writers, and business managers, etc.?
10 to 15%, I think, is average.
Yeah, I was gonna say 10 to 15%.
Yeah.
Plus HST.
Yeah.
If they're Canadian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, managers will usually take 15% gross or 20% net. That's kind of what I've come across as like an industry standard.
Yeah, I can add to that too. So managers, yeah, that's what I know. 15 gross or 20 net, and then agencies 10 to 15%. I've seen agencies charge up to 20% as well, depending on the type of show, depending on if you have an exclusive agreement with them, if you have a non-exclusive agreement. Basically, the more rights that someone has over your business, generally the lower percent you try to negotiate. If they have, like, think of territory as well. Like, these are all types of just like contracty things that you should think about with agencies. At least is like territory. Do they have you for Canada? Do they have you for the world? Do they have you for North America only? Do they have you for Europe only? So think about that and how much you're willing to pay out to them. How long of a contract that you might have for them. They're usually handshake deals with agencies. Usually no one signs paperwork, as far as I know in Canada. There's a couple, obviously, like large touring deals that you might sign if you're Lady Gaga or Madonna, to like large Live Nation package deals that will do, say, like 10, 20 show arena packages with you, but not for the development or emerging artists. Business managers, I know they used to take 5% back in the day about 5 years ago when I worked in management. I don't know how much they take now. Business managers are really, really helpful to have if you're not strong, you don't feel comfortable in math or your finances. And then lawyers, once you get to a status where you're hiring lawyers to handle your stuff, is generally 10%, as I knew when I worked on the management side about 5 years ago. Or you can just pay lawyers like flat fees, like say you're signing a recording deal or a management deal, you can just pay them generally a flat deal for them to review it with you until your signature gets on the paper there. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What she said.
All right, don't turn your mics off. The next one's for the two of you. Can you walk us through the system of accounting between an agency and a band? How do commissions work? Do you wait until the end of the tour and take it all at once, or you do it on a pre-show basis? It's a good question.
Yeah, totally. Either or. So generally, it's whatever makes the most sense between you and your agent. That's speaking from an indie agency hat. If you sign with Paradigm or WME or UTA, the majors right now in the States, generally it will be per quarter. If you sign like with a major, so per quarter of the year. So you'll get a statement, say January and March, you'll get one at the end of March, April to June, you'll get one at the end of June. And so forth. Indie agencies is kind of just like, I don't know. I'm friends with most of the artists that we rep. They're just like, Tao, I need money. And I work on a flexible deal with them, because a lot of people need money in advance to pay for their tour bus or to get from point A to point B to even play for the show. So I like to be a bit flexible in the way I do accounting. You know, it's usually, if we do like a 20-day tour, it'll be at the end of that tour. We'll get settlement reports at the end of every show that we'll balance for our artists. We'll pay them a lump sum at the end of the tour. Or if it's just like, you know, I booked, say it's a non-exclusive act I rep, and we basically, you know, book them one summer show, then we'll pay it out at the end of that show. So we like to work on sort of like a common sense based approach and pay people out according to need and what makes sense.
Fucked Up has worked with like 7 booking agents, and pretty much for everyone, we just do a statement at the end of the tour. So again, going back to those meticulous notes that you're taking on tour, you're checking the statement, how much cash you received, how much cash the agent received on your behalf, how much was sent to taxes in whatever territory you were at. Then at the end of the tour, we kind of cross-reference everything, and then either, like, depending on how many deposits they receive on our behalf, I'll either send them money, or a lot of times they're sending me money if they're receiving a lot of deposits. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And I know that, like, early on, people would ask, like, what does the what does the booking agent do for you? Because they assume the agents are taking care of your hotels and taking care of your vehicles. Well, the hard truth is that that's usually, at least in my experience, has been on our shoulders. We, like, sure, there are some deals, you know, for playing a festival. Usually that comes with a hotel. Usually it comes with ground transport. But if we're doing a tour, then a lot of that falls on us. And I don't know, maybe that's just the deal that our agent is working out and what we as a band are comfortable with. But because usually we, you know, if we can get a hotel, fantastic. And usually we do, but if it's a tour, then we're taking care of that. But, you know, we're trying to get those hotel points on hotels.com, or we're trying to find, you know, cheap hotels and, like, really, again, maximize the dollar. I know it'll be awesome. Like, it would be awesome to stay at a Marriott and pay $1,000 a night on hotels. But again, everything is, like, filtered through this, like, cost effective lens with us. But yeah, sorry, that was a bit meandering.
Yeah. Everything they said was amazing. I have nothing to add.
Well, speaking of meandering, we have no more questions. So you're welcome to meander a bit longer should you have any last words that you want to impart on our audience.
Well, the one thing I wanted, like, Katie was talking about something and it reminded me of this saying, which is luck equals opportunity plus preparedness. You know, like, sometimes, like, you'll hear, oh, that band is so lucky they got that opening slot here, or they're so lucky they're doing that tour. But really, it's about doing the work over, and timing is huge too. I know this, you know, this equation doesn't include timing, but you know, it's about being prepared for when the opportunity strikes. Yes, Katie?
Oh no, I wasn't gonna say anything, but I was just like, yes.
Oh, okay.
but that's absolutely true. And I think what I often will say to artists is that you never know when the opportunity is going to come. And so you have to just, like, keep going and keep working. And, you know, if you're doing what you're doing and you're making good music and everything, like, an opportunity will come eventually. Like, it'll be the timing will align, I think, at some point. Hopefully, I guess. I don't know.
Also, keep your expectations low, because then you'll never be disappointed. That's just general life advice.
Yeah.
One sort of, like, nerdy thing I wanted to add was offer sheets for your shows, just like financial tips on offer sheets. So I just want to say that, I'm getting a bit of echo. I hope you folks aren't, but when you get a show offer sheet, or if you get an offer through an email, I just want to, like, reiterate that think of shows as, like, a big pot that gets split up at the end of the night when folks go home. So whatever is listed on your offer sheet is, like, part of the big pot of expenses. And think of everything that you're paying from your towels, the 4 towels that they give you on stage at $5 a towel, to the door person who's getting paid, you know, $20, $25 an hour to work your show from doors at 7 p.m. to curfew at midnight. is getting paid per hour. Every expense is listed on your offer sheet. So like I'm a big fan of just like reading the fine print and making sure you know everything that's going into the big pot of which will affect your net and your take home when you put that cash in your pocket at the end of every night when you get your settlement report. Make sure you count up all your cash too. But in terms of when you learn further, like when you get into like an established medium level app, you'll get to know what the different types of show deals are, from flat deals to plus deals to versus deals. Before getting into the nitty gritty of all that stuff, just know to just think of show accounting like a big pot and all the expenses. Like a lot of artists don't understand that, like when they ask for wine and beer, like expensive wine on their rider, that's part of the big pot that gets taken off. That's not the promoter getting a bottle of wine for you. They might get a bottle of wine for you if it's a sold out show of say 1,400 tickets to the Danforth Music Hall and people just want to celebrate it at the end of the night. But other than that, be careful of hospitality riders when people want to buy you club sandwiches or things that you're allergic to. You know, just be careful of the food and the drink that's on your rider. That's a common pot. That's not a gift. So yeah.
My final advice would probably be, I know this is financial literacy, but don't focus on the money, focus on the why, because if you focus on the money, you're going to be really sad. So just focus on why you're doing what you do, and like the 10 years that you put in will all come down to that 1 hour that you have at a show, or like you go to South by and get signed by record deal. So definitely don't focus on the money you're getting. Be smart about it, but focus on why you're trying to get paid for what you do.
Yeah,
So true.
Those are really wise words, I think, to close off the panel. I think it's all about finding a balance. And on that note, I also wanted to remind people that there is another Venus Fest panel at 8 p.m. called Relocalizing and Rebuilding Our Scenes, and that you can watch here on YouTube and on the Venus Fest website. As you know, the virtual conference is going on, and please visit the Venus Fest website and YouTube channel about festival programming on Thursday and Friday night, which is hosted by Silky and Lee, with music and video collaboration by a bunch of artists listed on the website. Michelle, do you have anything to add?
No, I just wanted to thank Venus Fest for having us.
For having me.
Thank you, Venus Fest.
Thank you.
Thank you, Venus Fest. You're amazing.
Yes.